Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the first ever new school year orientation hosted by UCLA Health, Sound Body, Sound Mind, and Ready, Set, Gold. We know it's October, so the school year is already well underway, but we have a lot of great information to still share for you guys. Our two organizations are among the leaders in Southern California when it comes to supporting physical education. So to team up for this event was a no-brainer. My name is Matt Fleesock, and I am the Executive Director of UCLA Health, Sound Body, Sound Mind. I've been working at SBSM for just over 6 years now, and I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. To those familiar faces, it's great to see you again. And to those new faces and names, hello, it's wonderful to meet you. Hosting alongside me today is Michaela.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela Reynolds. I am the Director of Ready, Set, Gold. For those of you who are not familiar with the program, we inspire the next generation through sport. To that note, our program wouldn't create the same impact without the thousands and thousands of students without your support. So thank you.
So before we dive into this great session, I want to cover a few housekeeping rules. You guys are experts in managing virtual classrooms by now, so I'm sure everything here will be very familiar, but it still bears repeating. Everyone should have been admitted muted. We ask that you stay on mute unless you have a question or a comment, at which point, please remove yourself from mute and jump on in. Feel free to enter any comments in the chat or questions as well. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation today. And we ask if you do feel comfortable to have your cameras on. It'll be a much more engaging session if we see visible faces as opposed to a wall of black boxes only. And you are more than welcome to use the raise hand function if you have a question. That'll definitely be the most orderly way for us to be seen by our staff. That's it on the housekeeping front, and on to an overview of today's session. We have teachers here from both Sound Body, Sound Mind supported schools and Ready, Set, Gold supported schools, along with a number of Olympian and Paralympian mentors through the Ready, Set, Gold program. We have 3 segments in today's session. First, we will hear a recorded welcome message from John Nabor, Ready, Set, Gold's chairman. This will be followed by a conversation between 2 Paralympians on their experiences in school and beyond as students with disabilities. Following this conversation, we will have an open Q&A with both of those speakers. And finally, we will move the session into breakout rooms, one for Sound Body, Sound Mind, and one for Ready, Set, Gold to learn in greater detail about the resources each organization will provide during this school year. As a final note, today's session is a mixture of pre-recorded sessions and live content. With this mixture, there is always the possibility of some technical challenges, so we do ask for your patience throughout, but I've got a great feeling that things will go off without a hitch.
COVID has caused some unprecedented disruptions to education. So during this time, teachers have gone to incredible lengths to help their students keep learning. While all students benefit from their teachers in various ways, you, our teachers, have stayed committed and dedicated through the pandemic, have been especially important. This is why we want to support our teachers today with messages, tools, and tips provided by our teams and various speakers throughout this session. We are so proud to work with you all, and we want to continue our partnership with you by kicking off the year with this orientation and diving into more information around the organization you are associated with, either Ready, Set, Gold or Sound Body, Sound Mind. We hope you leave this session today moved and motivated to be the best version of you for your students, ready to drive inclusion for all students with a better understanding of each program you are associated with. Our first guest speaker will share his experience as a student and his appreciation for you all. John Nabor was America's most decorated Olympian at the 1976 Games in Montreal, where he won 4 gold and 1 silver medals while breaking 6 world records in the swimming pool. He earned the Sullivan Award as the nation's outstanding amateur athlete in 1977, and in 1984 was inducted into the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame. Since then, he has distinguished himself as a sports announcer on television and radio, author of not 1, but 3 Olympic-related books, and professional motivational speaker while simultaneously volunteering for dozens of local nonprofits. He has been an active member in Ready, Set, Gold since its inception in 2006. And now, as the chairman of our program, John is now a board member of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Oh, my screen Sorry about that technical issue. John is now a board member on the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee and will be on the street covering the 2022 Rose Parade for ABC Television.
Thank you, Michaela. It's my pleasure to speak to the Ready, Set, Gold teachers, Olympian and Paralympian mentors, and UCLA Health Sound Body, Sound Mind teachers and staff. We're engaged in an important mission, and the outcome of our efforts may not be seen immediately, but the potential consequences of what we are trying to do are immense. I'm honored to be on this path with each one of you as chairman of Ready, Set, Gold. The American athletes at the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games performed beautifully, winning the Olympic medal count and demonstrating to the world how all individuals can excel at some physical activity. The public continues to embrace U.S. medal winners as role models for physical activity and achievement. The next Olympic and Paralympic Games will be in Beijing, China, less than 130 days from now. The time is still right to proclaim the message that physical activity and personal success are intrinsically linked. PE and gold medals are connected, and the future health, both mental and physical, of our next generation is at stake. If our own kids don't learn the value of physical activity, their future health will surely suffer. We're engaged in a most important quest. Now, what a year we've had, right? If someone had told me 10 years ago that the entire country would have been under house arrest for over a year, I would have laughed at them. But for all intents and purposes, that's exactly what happened. While we're not yet out of this storm, I do see clear skies ahead, even if some clouds are still hanging around. But rather than spend any of our time griping about the past, I'd like to look ahead to the future and the wonderful opportunities that remain. But first, let me tell you a true story. In March of 1972, I was a junior in high school, about to begin the swimming season upon which most college coaches based their recruiting. It was also an Olympic year, and although I wasn't a likely prospect for those games, it still mattered. At the time, I was the fastest swimmer on the team, and so I was proudly strutting my stuff on the pool deck before workout. I found myself bouncing on the low board like a trampoline, showing off and barking orders at the underclassmen. "Freshmen," I yelled, "lane lines." And that meant to put the lanes, the metal cable with the string of floating buoys that divided the pool into separate lanes, into the water, and they had to tighten them at the wall with a ratchet. When the coach finally arrived, he yelled, "Nabor, get off that board and into the pool." I looked in front and below the board I saw a nice taut lane line. The cable separating lanes 1 and 2 as tight as a guitar string. I elected to jump off the board at a slight angle. Normally, this would have worked fine, but as I had been bouncing multiple times, I loaded the board with so much spring that it propelled me into the air much farther than I anticipated. With arms flailing, I descended towards the pool, and I missed the water, actually bouncing off the gutter, breaking my collarbone and putting this dimple in my right cheek in the process. My season came to an abrupt end before it even started. Refusing surgery, I resigned myself to wearing a figure 8 brace that held my shoulders back while the bone slowly knitted itself back into shape. Unable to enter the water and not allowed to lift weights, I looked for ways to remain engaged in the sport, even without the ability to participate. I asked the coach if he needed an assistant. I read articles about the world record holder in the backstroke events. I studied the strokes of my teammates from above the water, a completely different perspective. And I helped organize the dual meet lineups on paper, strategically spacing out our top point scorers so as to maximize the points that they'd be able to add to our team. What I do remember is that I returned to the pool in June, with just enough time to earn a qualifying time to enter that year's Olympic team trials in Chicago in July. That year, the top 3 finishers in each event were placed on the Olympic team. In my best event, I finished 5th, 0.6 of a second out of 3rd. While I didn't make the 1972 team, I did watch Mark Spitz qualify for 7 events, and I was glued to the television as I watched the games in Munich, Germany. Now, you may say, why is he telling us this story? It may have been possible for me to make that Olympic team if only I had been healthy all year long. Had I gone to Munich, I might have been able to squeak out a bronze medal, and who knows, perhaps that might have been enough to satisfy my swimming ambitions. I just don't know. What I do know is that by missing out on the 1972 team, I was twice as hungry to make the 1976 team. By studying the sport from the pool deck, I was able to make corrections to my own stroke that otherwise might have eluded me. By learning the strategy of spacing out great efforts, I learned how to marshal my resources to win medals in 5 different events over a grueling 8-day schedule. I remain in awe of what Michael Phelps did to win 8 gold medals. Now, I'm not saying that if I could turn back the clock, I'd choose to break my collarbone again, but I am saying that unfortunate circumstances can provide a real learning opportunity if we have a growth mindset attitude. We can't change the past, but let's be sure to milk it for all it's worth. What did we learn from the pandemic? We learned a lot, including that teachers are more important than ever and more important than most people ever thought. Physical activity is more important than ever. During COVID, obesity rates skyrocketed. The CDC shared a study that BMI in children grew at a double rate during the pandemic. Virtual meetings are possible, and we can reach a much wider audience, but it's not the same as in-person learning. And we learned that kids need to move often and hard, and they move better and harder when they're competing against their peers. Together, in our efforts to help Southern California school children during the past year and into the future, Ready, Set, Gold and UCLA Health Sound Body, Sound Mind have the potential to reach around 200,000 students. The pandemic forced us to create new avenues of communication, new messages about mental health, new learnings about diet and exercise. None of these lessons can be unlearned. In junior high, I remember hearing other students say that PE was an easy hour, no study, no homework, no tests, and lots of fun. Perhaps that's why PE doesn't get the respect it deserves. The first PE teacher I can remember having was Mr. John Papanikolas, Mr. Pap for short. He took his class very seriously. He demonstrated each of the various skills he wanted us to learn, and he supervised the students to make sure they did them correctly. He made me want to do things correctly, safely, and competently. In running races, he never let any of his students stop moving, even if they were going to come in last. "Run through the finish," he'd yell, and I did. He taught me how to hit a tetherball using my height to an advantage, and he urged me to enter a school-wide competition, and that was the first time I was singled out for athletic accomplishment. Who knows? It might have helped me start me on my Olympic journey. Somebody once said, the greatest thing about being a teacher is that you never know where your influence might end. I honor all my PE teachers and coaches for the positive impact they had on my life. And so as we enter into the new school year, let's keep our eyes and ears open for more learning opportunities and more teaching opportunities. Like America's Olympic and Paralympic heroes who persevered during the one-year postponement and its related inconveniences, let's keep focused on the goal and not dwell on the cost. On behalf of future generations, and perhaps even a few members of the 2028 U.S. Olympic and Paralympic teams, I thank you for what you've already done and for what we are about to do together going forward. I now proudly turn the program back over to Matt and Michaela.
So we want to start by thanking John for that wonderful message. He said it so well when he said that during the pandemic, we learned just how important our teachers and school administrators and school staff members are. I speak for my team, parents everywhere, and many more when I say thank you, thank you, thank you for your earnest dedication to keeping our children active and educated during these last 18 months.
I bet some of you out there are inspiring the next John Nabor. So whether you are a Ready, Set, Gold teacher, Olympian, Paralympian, or Sound Body, Sound Mind teacher, you play a crucial role and the development of our next generation.
Now I see we have a hand raised. Mr. Chavez, do you have a question or something you want to jump in with?
I just wanted to say thank you for that inspiration. That was a great start for this meeting.
Thank you. So moving along, our second segment today will explore the topic of working with students with disabilities and the importance of inclusion and access. We will have two main parts for this session, a pre-recorded discussion, and then a live question and answer.
Before we jump in, we have two poll questions to better understand where you are in understanding disabilities and students with disability. Please answer honestly. Your responses will be anonymous. Our first question is, do you actively communicate with your APE teacher on campus?
All right, answers are coming in. Two-thirds of the way there. We'll leave it open. A few more people, please be sure to answer, and then we'll share the results. Waiting on about 10 more.
There we go.
This is fun. We get to see as it moves, but everyone else, it's a secret. All right, a few more seconds, and then we will end this poll and show the results. All right, so we had about...
Good.
I'm going to share this with everybody. So a pretty even spread here. We had 37 people answer this poll. 35% said strongly agree that they do actively communicate with their APE teacher on campus, which is phenomenal. We're going to move on to our second question. Michaela?
Yes. So our second question, please answer according to how you feel. So I feel confident working with students with disabilities in the classroom. Strongly disagree, disagree, neither agree or disagree, agree or strongly agree. And this is great too, because during the next conversation with Candace and Leroy, and after that, there will be a Q&A. So please feel free to start thinking about those questions that might make your strongly disagree a strongly agree.
Wonderful. All right, we'll give 5 more seconds. We're waiting on just a couple more answers. And we will share the results here. So very interesting. We see a shift down towards agree and a bit more people answering with disagree and neither agree nor disagree. So it's nice we see people communicating with their AP teacher, but this highlights for us that there is an opportunity to improve the confidence level here when working with students with disabilities in the classroom. So thank you all. We appreciate you giving us this insight into these questions. We really hope that you enjoy this this discussion that we have recorded for you. Michaela, I think you have the intro first.
Absolutely. So I am very honored to introduce you guys today to Candace Cable. She is an active native Angelino whose life at the age of 21 in 1975 took a high-speed turn that resulted in a spinal cord injury that requires her to use a wheelchair for mobility. She began a 27-year journey in 1979 to become a 9-time winter and summer Paralympian, a 12-time medalist in 3 sports, world championships, and many firsts, including a winter of 84 marathons, as well as 6 Boston marathons, leading to her induction into the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame. She is a writer, she's a speaker, and education developer on equity, diversity, access, and inclusion. She has advocated both domestically and globally with organizations such as UNICEF, the LA 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games Bid Organization, and many more. She attends and participates regularly with the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities and Sustainable Development Goals meetings at the United Nations. We are thrilled to share her knowledge and expertise with you all today.
I have the honor of introducing our second speaker, 2021 Emmy Award-winning Leroy F Moore Jr. is the founder of Crip Hop Nation, a movement that uses hip hop as a means of expression for people with disabilities. Leroy Moore is a writer, poet, community activist, and a hip hop and music lover. He was born with cerebral palsy and has dedicated much of his writing and activism to disability rights. Moore is currently a doctoral student in linguistic anthropology at UCLA. He writes and delivers lectures and performances that reflect the intersections between racism and ableism, both in the United States and abroad. His most recent book, Black Disabled Ancestors, came out in 2020. We hope that you enjoy this discussion.
Hello, people. This is Leroy Moore, and I'm a Black disabled man at CP. Was born in 1967. Such a long time ago.
And I'm Candace Cable. I am a white woman. I have the pronouns of she and her, and I use a wheelchair for mobility because of a car accident that I had in 1975 at the age of 21. And we're here to just share some stories about things that have made a huge impact in our lives that we think could be really, really valuable to all of you as PE teachers. I mean, 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act, right?
Yeah.
Came forward and
Yeah.
and that was really the first time that disabled people with disabilities had civil rights.
Yeah.
We were left out of all that other stuff.
Yeah, totally
Right?
left out. And, I can go to my personal story. My mom had to sue the school board back in Connecticut. And this was before IDEA and before the ADA. So this is like 1972 or something like that. But she had to sue the school board to get me out of segregated education into mainstream, quote unquote, regular education. So because he sued the school board, my mom fought for a teacher's aide to go with me in mainstream classes, and I saw the total difference. I mean, it was night and day. I saw that teachers had, expectations for the students to actually do the work, And those segregated education, the teachers didn't really care about disabled students doing the work. So I saw a total difference when I was quote unquote mainstream into quote unquote regular education.
And so when that happened, when you were mainstream, because I grew up a non-disabled kid. So, I mean, I had access to everything, right? There was, they didn't talk about mainstreaming really at all. And I mean, growing up, I didn't really see any disabled kids or recall it. But when I think about it, I remember I had a friend, her name was Carla, and she had long leg braces on her legs. Yeah. So she may have been someone who had polio, right? Because this would have been in the 50s and 60s.
Wow.
And I never thought anything different from it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. So when you were mainstreamed, did you really feel like you were getting the attention that?
Yeah, I mean, in the mainstream classes, teachers are like, okay, you're going to do the work like any other student. So I was like, it was a change because in those segregated classes, you're off in a corner somewhere, putting a square peg in a round basket. So you weren't really doing anything all day. Yeah, and for me, being young and even now, communication is so important.
Mhm.
You have to talk to the person with a disability. You have to talk to the students on campus. How do you know what a student can do if you don't talk to them? Isn't that basic? Yeah. So when I was segregated in those segregation school classes back in the early 70s, I felt like I was like my voice doesn't matter. It was like in the corner somewhere. I felt like, what is this? Because at home, my mom and my dad was activists, so we were activists. But at school, I felt like I just, sit in the corner and be quiet. So I felt like, why do I have to stay quiet? I got things to say. I got things to contribute. And how can you be a teacher if you don't talk to your students?
What do you think, they were afraid to talk to you? Or, I mean,
Yeah, I think they're afraid, and I think their attitudes around disability at the time is like, oh, he can't contribute much, so we'll just let him be.
oh, so the bias and the stereotypes of a disabled person doesn't, well, that they don't know what they want,
Yeah, I don't know what they want.
or they need to be taken care of.
Yeah.
So if I just put them over here, I'm not going to have to do anything to take care of them because, well, I've got a lot to do. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it blows my mind. It's like, how can you be a teacher and you're not talking to your students? That just blows my mind because, like I said, at home, we communicated. My mom communicated with me. I communicated with my sister. And going to school, there's no communication at the time. So, yeah, so please, teachers, talk to the students, especially in gym class and APA class. Talk to your students. You'll find out that a student is good in basketball, baseball. You won't know that until you talk to your students.
Well,
Hmm.
I think that people don't talk to people with disabilities because they're always afraid they might say something that might, make someone feel bad, or they don't know what to say, that kind of thing. And one of the stories I want to offer here that made a huge difference for me, because like I said, I didn't have my spinal cord injury until the age of 21. So I grew up a non-disabled kid in school. So
Yeah.
the teachers were including me in everything. And I don't recall ever actually seeing somebody with a disability while I was in school. But after my spinal cord injury, I felt so isolated and alone and just excluded from so many things that once I started to go to Long Beach State and I started enrolling in different classes, I thought I'd enroll in a swimming class. And this swimming class changed my life and changed the way I saw the world because of the swimming teacher and the coach. I showed up on the pool deck thinking I was going to a class to learn how to swim. And I ended up actually at the swim team practice. And the coach, John Urbanchek, at the time, who is, if you Google him, he's a really famous swim coach now, Olympic, all these different things. But then he was, the swim coach at Long Beach State. And I showed up and he said, oh, well, this isn't a class to learn how to swim, but you know what? If you want to stay, I'll teach you how to swim and you can swim with my athletes and you could learn how to compete. He said, I'm not sure what we're going to do or how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out together by the two of us spending some time and looking at what works and what doesn't work. And so one of the things that he did do was whenever there was a swim meet, he had me swim half the distance that they swam so that I wasn't so far out, because I was just using my arms, right? I wasn't using my arms and legs. And so if they were swimming 100 meters, I was swimming 50. And that experience showed me that when someone is open and willing to explore possibilities and to try different things to see what will work, and they have the communication like you talked about back and forth, that changed everything for me. And I had a sense of feeling like I was back in the world, and that feeling of exclusion disappeared. And I started to feel as if I was capable of doing a lot of different things that I hadn't thought about now that I was using a wheelchair. Because once I started using a wheelchair, I thought everything was closed off to me. And with John's help, the teacher, I was able to see my possibility. And I think that's really the beauty of the profession, is really showing each and every one of us by communicating with us and then trying different things that we can do anything.
I have a message for parents. Parents are really important. So my mom, I told the story about my mom fighting me to get into mainstream education. But also my mom brought me to this agency, United Cerebral Palsy Association. And I saw a mirror of myself. I saw a Black disabled older lady that was the executive director of the whole organization. It's like, oh, snap. I can do that. That's the first time I saw a Black disabled person really working and having a title. But I have my own story about Chris Candace.
The movie.
Yeah, the movie. So I was first as a camper in this summer camp called Camp Harkness in Connecticut. And I stayed there for almost 12 years. I was a camper, then I was a junior counselor, then I was a sports director, then I was a counselor. And at the end, I was running the camp. I was the co-director of the whole camp. So that changed my, view around disability, because I grew up with these people. I grew up in this camp for all these years. And, outside of camp, Bev Jackson, the Black disabled woman that my mother showed me, she got me into sports.
Is that how you got to the Paralympics?
Yes, that's how I got to the Paralympics.
Being inclusive is also creating new opportunities. I know that Special Olympics created a program called Unified Sport, and that brings athletes with intellectual disabilities playing sport with non-disabled kids. And so bringing both groups together creates more knowledge, more experience, more exposure, and being able to spend time with people that are not like us also expands our own knowledge about what is possible in the world. And so as we kind of started out, the idea of separation was so adamant of keeping disabled people away from non-disabled people. We really need to all come together so that we can spend time together and then experience how we make this all work together. Because the separation piece is never something that benefits anyone, no matter what we don't know. Because when we don't know about something and we're faced with something that's unfamiliar, what happens is we fall into fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Yeah.
And empathy.
There's no growth. There's no
Yeah.
growth in that.
No growth at all. And sports and cooperative play builds empathy in major ways. And when we all come together, working together and learn from each other, we're going to create an environment that is simpler, more inclusive, and I mean, bottom line fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you want to hang out with us?
Exactly.
So this is just the tip of the iceberg that Leroy and I have brought forward in this discussion about disability, inclusion, equity, access, diversity, all of that. There's so much more out there. And, you know, disability is a part of the human experience in so many ways. And there's so much to know and learn. And we want to be a part of it. We want to bring these kind of things forward. And so don't stop with just this. There's so much that is just ripe for being able to add to whatever you're bringing forward in the environment. So bringing kids with disabilities and kids without disabilities together to really participate in sport and activity is the ultimate key. So I want to show gratitude for all of you showing up today, and well, for all teachers, because you make a huge difference in our lives as adults, even because both of us interact with different people with disabilities and kids. And the teachers that they're interacting with make a big difference in their lives. And my teachers have made a huge difference in my life. And they have motivated me to do the things that I've done in my life and to think beyond what I think is possible. And so we would really like to thank you for taking the time today to be a part of this, and also for all of the time and effort that you put in, because we both know, and the organizers of this know, that this is hard work, creating good people, right?
Yeah, and without you taking that step of, going to an area that you probably don't know, but you took that step, you opened that door, and because you opened that door, a lot of other students are going to go through that door. So thank you for opening the door.
Wow. What a great discussion. Michaela and I actually had the honor of watching Candace and Leroy speak at length on their experiences, and it was incredibly moving and informative. We wish we could share the whole thing with you, but we want to be sensitive of your time. We do hope that this small segment was valuable to you.
We are all lifelong learners, so to help us continue learning about this topic, we are thrilled to welcome back both Candace and Leroy on this event for a live Q&A. Hello, Candace and Leroy.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
So, to help kick us off, I do want to ask one of the many wonderful questions that we received from our attendees while you registered today. But following my question, feel free to turn your camera on, take yourselves off mute, put something in the chat. But this first question comes from a PE teacher in LAUSD, and it is, I would love your advice on the best ways to equally include and engage my students with disabilities in my physical education class.
I can go first. Like we said throughout the video, talk to them, because they have the answers. Beyond that, there's so many examples. I'll give my example. Because I was a good hitter in baseball, they used to put me as a hitter, and my co-student would run the bases. So that's one example of including and really getting in touch with what the student can do good in the area. My gym teacher knew because another student that used to live in my neighborhood told my gym teachers, like, Leroy's a good hitter. So once again, it's called listening to the students. Candace?
So I would think about also the word equal, and in that it's not necessarily an equal piece that we're trying to create. It's about equity and what works for people, and being able to talk to someone and find out what they need to be able to participate at that level, whatever it is a part of that, you know, creating that type of an opportunity. And I worked with an organization for quite a while that did access in the travel and tourism industry. And one of the acronyms that our developer and founder created was the WALL, WALL, and that lots of people have walls up, right? And this was about breaking down the wall. And this acronym is about watch, the W, watch. Like watch, look, see, how can we make adjustments? And then A, ask, have a conversation. Over and over, we've brought that up too, about the conversation, you know, communication. And then listen to what they say. And you can use a technique of mirroring to be able to articulate back to the student what it is that they said, to make sure that you heard what they said and got it right. And then learn from that and try to adjust and make some changes. And then remember that just because that disability might be similar, say someone uses a wheelchair and another one uses a wheelchair, they're going to be different. So what you learned from the last one might not overlay on to the next one. So it would be a repeat of watch, ask, listen, and learn, and just store the information, because as we go forward and create more equity in spaces and bring everyone together so that we can learn from each other, there's going to be a lot of adjustments and changes. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Palencia, who I know is on, because he hit me up in the chat saying hello, that I'm one of the athletes that participates in the Ready, Set, Gold program. And he was my PE teacher that I got to spend a couple of years with before the pandemic. And we had some really fun stuff that we invented. And so getting involved with Ready, Set, Gold is going to bring some good ideas into your classrooms.
Thanks, Candace. I love that. Well, and so moving on to our next question, we had a teacher submit a question that asks, how has your disability enabled you to stay motivated? And what are some of the strategies that we can project to our students to not give up?
Leroy here again. I think when I came into my disability culture, you know, a short story is that I was downstairs in my father's basement and I saw his blues records. This is before computers, and most of the blues artists were people with disabilities. So I saw that as a part of my identity and a part of my culture. So when I got that strong foundation, that really helped me to improve my you know, feeling around disability. So now I feel that my disability is a culture, is internationally. I wrote 6 books around Black disabled issues, from Black disabled ancestors to Black disabled history, art history 101. So I continue to build on my culture, my history, and that builds on my positivity around my identity. And that really needs to happen in schools. So get my books.
Yeah, that's right. Get Leroy's books, because you can't have enough books about disability, because our culture and aspects of disability aren't really taught in school.
Mhm.
And I think that, when I think about this question, how my disability enabled me to stay motivated, I think about community, like Leroy mentioned, and not letting other people project their fears on me and absorbing that, because we live in a society that still has not made real space for people with disabilities to be able to participate in an equitable and full way. And so we have to continue to try to create more community for that kind of outside support and educate. And so I would say, don't let the low expectations of society get you, because it's going to be there, because that's what society has done before. My first Paralympic Games was in 1980. And that time they were starting to think about having the Paralympic Games and the Olympic Games in the same cities and venues. There wasn't a contract the way there is now. When someone bids for the games, when a city bids for the games, they have to put on the Olympic and Paralympic Games. They come together now. But then it wasn't set. So those games in 1980 were to be in Moscow. And the Soviets said, we're not going to hold the Paralympic Games because we don't have any disabled people. Really? The entire Soviet Union doesn't have any disabled people. Well, the truth is, before the mid 20th century, disabled people were either institutionalized or eradicated. That was what was done. And the low expectations of society still overlay on top of us now, because we lack the education of knowledge that disability is a life experience that we're all going to experience at some point. And that it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it's just a thing. And we have to create a world that embraces it, because this world that we live in now wasn't made for us. And so that's why we have these laws. That's why we have these responsibilities, to be very open to how are we going to adapt and how are we going to change to make sure that we leave no one behind. So don't buy into the low expectations.
So we have two questions that have come in here. I want to start with the second one, and that is that kids are very sensitive to being competitive with others. How do you keep this from discouraging those with disabilities?
Okay, I would say, I don't understand why competition would be discouraging. Personally, it's a great question, but competition is, when it's set in the right venues and it's a part of sport, or about not necessarily, I'm lacking a lack of word. You'd have to help me out here, Leroy, with this, because I'm missing a word here about this competition piece, because competition has positive pieces to it. But we don't want to get caught up in the part of it that is stuck in the ableism of it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a certain standard that people have around competition. And I really appreciate the question, because you're making me stretch.
Yeah, and competition is, something that we live with. We live under, capitalism, so everything is competition. But the thing is that you find what's good in your child. My mom found that I could write. So I was writing articles when I was 10 years old. So you, as a parent, you need to find what your child likes, and just shine it. it probably is not sport, but it could be something else. It could be your
Come
child
on.
likes to read. So, you got reading competitions, spelling bees, poetry competition. I'm a poet, so I used to go to open mics and, the open mic competition. So there's so many areas that you can explore, but the parents need to know their child. They need to know what their child is good in, Yeah.
And I think that actually starts to circle back to the whole difference between equity and equality here. And
Yeah.
so the key is to search for the opportunities that promote equity, having those conversations to make sure that you are creating opportunities for students that empower them and connect to their abilities and engage with what they are capable of doing and interested in doing. I think that, story you shared, Leroy, of someone advocating that you're a great hitter. You might not run the bases, but you're a great hitter. And so you
Yeah.
can be competitive in baseball.
Yeah, and Candace's story where the coach was like, we'll figure this out together, but we're going to do it. We'll figure it out together. Let's get you in the pool and we'll figure it out together. I think it's that boast of confidence and opportunity that coach created. We'll figure it out. Don't know. And being acknowledging that uncertainty, I think also creates that openness as well.
Right. And the competition isn't a bad thing. And as John put in the chat that maybe the word I was seeking was comparative, because I think a lot of times competition, and thank you, John, is something that people are comparing with. And that's not necessarily something that we want to bring forward, is comparing each other. But competition can be really healthy and it can be good for us.
Yeah, and one more point that you never know. I brought up my father's record collection, Now I do what's called Hip Hop Nation. And it's an international network of musicians with disabilities, and we just won an Emmy, So once again, knowing what interests you, stick with it, and yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for this conversation. We're just scratching the surface. I'm sure that we could spend so much more time chatting about this, but we will be following up with everybody here with some additional resources and reading that Candace and Leroy have put together. We'll share about Hip Hop Nation, which Leroy is a part of, some of these other things that have been brought up through the recording and beyond. So Candace, Leroy, thank you so much for your time and your involvement. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michaela and Matt.
Yeah.
Now we will be opening up our breakout rooms, one for Sound Body, Sound Mind, and one for Ready, Set, Gold.
We really hope above all that you feel more aware of the resources that are available for you and your school. In summary, both UCLA Health, Sound Body, Sound Mind, and Ready, Set, Gold are here to support you and your physical education department. We understand that physical education is one of the most, if not the most important subject. And we know that resources are scarce. And we hope, we could say that again, I'm sure, right? And we just hope that our organizations are able to help bridge that gap and support you and your departments and your schools and your students.
Yeah, I mean, like Matt said, your work as physical education teachers, administrators, or our athlete mentors is critical for your students.
So following today, we are going to share further resources. Both Candace and Leroy have worked with Michaela and I, and we put together a document of some further reading and resources for best practices for inclusion and access for students with disabilities. We're also going to share a feedback survey on today's event. As we said in the beginning, this was our first time doing this, opening ourselves up to every single one of you with a partner organization. And so we have a lot to learn. We are eager for your feedback. Please be honest. It is anonymous, so you can feel that you can be extra honest. And maybe most importantly, what I'm sure is on everybody's minds, we will share raffle winners next week with you guys via email. So we were tracking who was attending and participating. We know that you gave some time after school, and thank you for that.
Yes, thank you so much. And I mean, you play a huge role in the lives of our students. And as Olympian John Nabor said, you're inspiring the next generation and helping students accomplish their goals and become the best version of themselves. So we thank you all for your time today and hope you have a great school year.
Thank you all. That is all we have planned. You all take care.